Finding the right jeans is hard. Accepting your jeans is even harder.
Whether you wear boyfriend or boot cut, high rise or low rise, this podcast will teach you to love the jeans you are in. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Tina. And we're going to use modern research to bust diet myths and get real about body after baby.
We're going to take you on a journey of unpacking your old beliefs about food and weight so you can learn to nourish your body and raise body-confident kids.
So put your booty in a chair and let's talk mom jeans. This episode you're about to listen to has a few choice words, so if you're listening with your children in the car, earmuffs. Thank you. Welcome to Mom Jeans. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different, and we are going to be interviewing 3 mamas and their recovery story. Recovery from an eating disorder is certainly not a linear path, nor is there one way to tackle recovery. Each person's journey of recovery is as individual as their eating disorder. So we wanted to offer a space for 3 different moms with various backgrounds and recovery journeys to share their story and honestly discuss how becoming a mom added another layer to their recovery process. We are so grateful for their vulnerability, their strength, and their courage as they navigate busting diet myths, letting go of body image ideals, coping with their feelings without using food or behaviors, and showing up to their recovery day in and day out. We decided to split this episode into 3 parts so that each episode is each mom's separate story. I would encourage you all to listen to all 3 as each mom has a very important message to share.
We have a new mom, an eating disorder professional and leader in the eating disorder field. We have a mom of 2 who has fought against biases and a lack of resources as she has tried to advocate for her recovery. And a mama of 1 who has jumped through many hurdles in her recovery journey and through these hurdles has found true peace. So we're just going to jump right in this week. So let's transition to these stories. And right now we are going to be chatting with Carolina. Welcome to our episode about recovery. Could you please start us off by telling us a little bit about your story of body acceptance, just maybe when your body struggle started, how you've worked to heal them, how it is being a mom and struggling with body acceptance? Do you mind just sharing a little bit with us?
No, not at all. Like she said, my name is Carolina, and thank you again for letting me be on your show. I'm very, very, very excited to be able to share my story. And as a mom, I never thought that I would have to worry about my body image specifically since I have boys. But as I'm researching and I'm really paying attention to it, they watch, and it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or girl. I mean, they watch you, and if I'm in the mirror and I'm sucking my stomach in, or if I'm in the mirror and complaining about my body, they're going to hear me too. And I currently in recovery, part of a program. The focus is on recovery, and we're learning about balance and not restriction, because that's what they believe, and that's the way I'm looking at it. As a mom, it is very, very hard where Ed tries to talk to you in the back of your mind, and yet you're trying to talk to your children, but you also don't want to make the same remarks that Ed's making about you, because I think that's where it starts. And then it's like, no, I'm not Ed. I'm not going to put Ed in your face. I'm not going to be your Ed. I want to make sure. And I'm still in therapy, and I see a dietitian. So, I mean, I'm still working in recovery. I have had my eating disorder since very, very, very young age. And I went to treatment when my son was 1, and I will tell you that was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because I left and I was gone for 9 weeks, and I missed a lot of his first. So when I came back, I was stronger and I felt really good, and I was the mom that I was supposed to be. I had my head on grounded, and then came, where the rubber meets the road, and Ed decided to creep back in, and then it turned from there, and then off and on seeing a counselor, and then so on going to see a dietitian, while trying to balance mom, being a mom, and how do I balance recovery and being a mom, because being a mom is very important. But if mom is not there, then, and recovery is not there, then I'm not going to be the best mom. And one of my biggest struggles, I will say, is when I engage in eating disorder behaviors. I have a hard time keeping my blood sugar because so then that turns into me wanting to lash out at them, which is not what should be and would be with them. And then I feel like I don't want to be a bully to them. I don't want to mean any harm. And then at the same time, I think about it, and it's like, I'm in my own self as a mother, I am not hurting them. Ed is the one that's hurting them. And really, really have to take in consideration, like, okay, my dietitian always, when we go in our sessions, I go see her weekly, and she's like, who's talking? We have to question who is talking. Right now, my oldest, he's 9, and he has starting to his body changing and everything, and starting to make some remarks about it. And in the back of my mind, it's like, oh my gosh, is Ed in there? Did I do that? Did he see me and did I do that? He's also autistic, so he is very picky when it comes to food, and it's been really, really hard, trying to balance out maybe not eating disorder behaviors. I highly doubt it. I think it's all sensory processing in some sort of way. And then how to maintain that balance with him, and then as well as how do I make it known that, like, mommy's fine. And then sometimes when they see me cry, they're like, are you okay? And I have to be like, no, I'm not. And
yeah, I think it's great. I'm appreciative that you're coming on and being real and vulnerable and communicating that, like, hey, here are some struggles that I'm going through. I'm taking ownership for them, and I'm getting the support that I need by seeing a therapist, seeing a dietitian, going to treatment, and so that, my kids can grow up and have a positive relationship with food in their body. And that is, something that we do encourage moms. If you are struggling and you're recognizing some of these things going on, get help, so we don't pass it along to our children. Now, granted, there is that eating disorder realm that is partly genetics, partly environment, so it is not fully all within our control. So that being said, do you feel like when your kids are more age appropriate that you would share your story about your eating disorder and recovery journey with them?
I've thought about it. I'm not sure, to completely and totally be honest, Tina. I'm not sure. Yes, I am ashamed of it, and most likely because I was doing my eating disorder behavior when I was pregnant with my oldest. So I feel shameful. I feel like I caused his autism because maybe I was lacking a nutrient, maybe I was lacking I'm gonna start crying. My fault that I sorry.
You're okay.
It's very touchy subject to really talk about, because, and it's not that I'm not willing to talk about it, it's just that, my son is great and amazing and I love him, but however, I can't help but wonder, like, did I do it? And then my husband and my mother-in-law are very like, and his therapist is like, no, you didn't. It was, it's a chromosome. It's, all the science behind it. And it's just like, you can't help but wonder. And truth to be told, like, it's Ed that is making me wonder. Ed's the one that's putting those thoughts in my head. And it's like, okay, so, and at times it's really hard for me to not um, put those thoughts, specifically when he uses my children, if that makes sense. One day my son had a remark about my plate, and I was very surprised at that. And I'm thinking, I know you're trying to use me. I mean, not my son, but I know you're trying to use them, and I'm not going to let you do it. And
Yeah, I think it might be helpful for listeners to kind of point out that what you're doing, what Carolina's doing, is really trying to distinguish the different voices. So she's identifying the eating disorder voice by calling it Ed, and then really trying to separate that out from her healthy self or core self or soul self, whatever you want to call it, so that we can really create the separation. Now, all of us have this voice in my personal life. I call it my ego, and so my ego talks to me in this way, and then my soul self talks to me in this way, and it is still me, but it's helpful if we separate. So I appreciate you kind of giving us the lowdown on that, Carolina. I'm just kind of shooting it out there in case our listeners are like, what the heck is going on? Who's this Ed? We missed that person. Yeah, so it's all Carolina. She's just separating out the voices. So
my one thought is that, like, motherhood is so overwhelming to begin with, let alone having to try to deal with recovery on top of all of that. So, major props to you for trying to manage both motherhood and recovery. How has it been for you to try to carve out that time to get that help and to seek out those appointments? Because I know that's something that's really hard for moms, is putting themselves first and then also putting their mental health first. So how has that been for you?
well, thank you for the compliment. My husband and I live with his parents, which has helped a lot because they help us. And I do a lot of my recovery when my children are in school. So my dietitian, I see her Monday, my bad, Tuesdays at 8, and I go to the other support group that I go to on Fridays at 7, which, I mean, that's fine. I mean, we'll get that. Then and then Friday mornings I see the therapist, and then every month I see the psychiatrist. So I want to make sure that I do it in a form where I'm not missing too much, but yeah, at the same time, I'm not missing their life. And sometimes I can't help it. Like, I can't help it. Specifically, since I will be returning back to school on the fall. So I have to really gear my feet down and say, you know what, Ed, I'm not going to listen to you. As what Tina said, it's the same me. And I it's easier for me to do that. I will have to say that every time I talk to someone, I have to say I'm not schizophrenic because I'm not hearing voices or hallucinating or anything. However, it's just like she said, it's just my voice, or it's all me. It's just that voice. But recovery, otherwise, I maintain it. I'm in contact with my psychiatrist, on always, and trying to figure out my moods and struggling with mental health anyway. And then with the eating disorder, the only part that I would say, and I will be honest, is that in the doctor field, then I don't mean any harm towards doctors or anything like that. I just think that they need to be more educated on eating disorder, um, specifically psychiatrist, because my psychiatrist bluntly said that I didn't have an eating disorder because I did not meet the BMI, or I did not look like it. So that to me, like, triggered Ed, and it's like, look, I told you so. I told you so. So it's been really, like, it's been a battle when it comes to that. And then my dietitian looks at me and she said, really? Are you serious? And I said, yeah. She said, no. She said, no, let's take a look at it. So we went through, the whole process about it, and she just decided to call her herself, and whether she got to her or not, who knows?
it just really shows how something as harmful as that of, these practitioners not being fully educated, and practicing in a field that maybe they're not supposed to be practicing in or need to get more education on, how harmful just a flippant statement like that could be. But to all of us, we know how much power and how much volume that actually holds. And so for those that are listening, if you've had that similar experience or had someone in the medical field or mental health field judge your body or BMI or say that you don't deserve treatment because of your body size, that is not accurate. You need to either try to find a different practitioner or reach out and get support to those that are health at every size trained and understand that philosophy. So that's a big bummer that, that happened, but I'm glad you have a supportive team otherwise that can go through that with you and be like, no, let's process out the truth in what's going on. And it certainly is not what that psychiatrist said. So how do you in your recovery navigate your triggers as a mom specifically?
Oh, that's a really hard one. I will say, specifically since I'm still, again, in the early stages of my recovery, working through a lot of my shame and guilt and trauma as a child, that has my therapist and also my dietitian want me to work on that trauma, because if we don't work on that trauma, it's just going to keep feeding, Ed, like just keep feeding him, which is just going to make me sunk. I know that one of my triggers is definitely when someone says healthy, it triggers me. So I told my therapist the first thing, I said, don't tell me healthy. Because she said, well, we need to eat healthy. And I told her, no. I said, do not tell me that word. We don't use that word. We don't use it at the dietitians. We don't use it in what form. I said, don't ask me about my weight, because I don't know about my weight. That's another thing that psychiatrists used to do, is tell me my weight. And then that would just not be helpful. So because then when someone says healthy, to me, it's like, okay, so what I'm doing, what I'm eating is not healthy. Like, for someone that might be struggling, I don't know, with, doing the keto diet, we know I know that that's also a form of an eating disorder. So just stay in that. And it's like, okay, so if I'm not doing keto diet, or if I'm not doing this whatever, all non-carb diet, like I'm not being healthy, I'm not taking care of myself. So it's interesting figuring that. Another trigger of mine is exercise. When someone says the word exercise, my mind just starts going. And yes, it's a natural thing that we should be incorporated. Unfortunately, in my recovery, I am not allowed. So I'm restricted. So, and I have to remain at all times respectful of that, even though Ed would be on my mind and saying, that's okay, you can walk an extra block, but I have to remain, because like my dietitian says, like, if I give you an inch, you're going to do a mile. So she said, we're not going to do that. She said, we're just going to restrict. And I said, so what? I'm not allowed to, play it with my kids. And she's like, that's not what I meant. She said, you're just not, when you do those stuff, who is wanting to do? Ask yourself, who is that? So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think it's one of those things that, like, it's really important to have that awareness around what is triggering. And so it sounds like specific words. And so trying to reframe those words, setting those boundaries with your team, providers, family, friends, whoever, and asking for a reframe. And also respecting boundaries. It's not saying that you're never, ever going to have freedom with exercise. It's just saying, hey, guess what? This is where you are right now. And this is what I need right now to stay in treatment, in my recovery, and to really protect myself and my kids from a really gnarly eating disorder. I need to make sure that I'm engaging in self-care. And your self-care right now, it sounds like, is no movement.
So when you and I chatted on the phone a few weeks ago to get to know each other, you told me about how you had come from Mexico to the United States and how that impacted your body image. Would you be willing to share that piece with our listeners?
Yeah, that's fine, Rachel. So I moved to the United States when I was 10 years old. I not know how to speak English, so no nothing. And I come from a family that focuses on body image quite a bit, and specifically from my father. I'm sure he had, they did what the best they could with what they had. But if we're not aware of what we're telling our children, it's going to be something that's going to be negatively drilled. So one of the things is that when I came here was that I saw a lot of blonde and blue eye and light skin women. I saw like the Victoria's Secret um, models. I got to learn I got to see who, quote unquote, the boys liked, and I saw that I was not one of them. I was more of like a olive skin color, and I had curly hair, and I was shorter than a lot of them, and I wasn't what you would call a Barbie, or I wasn't a Victoria's Secret model, and I that impacted me a lot. And seeing on either social media or seeing people that are exercising or seeing people that are working towards getting that tone body, and knowing that I'm never I'm not going to get to that, because if I can't get to the point to where they're getting, because I know Ed would take over, and then I have to remind myself that those people are having their own eating disorder by exercising like all the time and feeling like and not nutrition and not meeting themselves where they're at, or that's the way that I guess I convinced myself. Another thing that I noticed, I think, about coming to the US was that um, with I tried. I would try to get my mom to, dye my hair. I would get my mom to, get me blue eye contacts. I would watch what I would eat, because, those girls would eat salads and everything. And then my mom would, come and fix me Mexican food, which was fine. But it wasn't like the salads. And it's just like, so it has impacted me quite a bit, I think. And now that we live in a society where body positivity is coming on and everything, and I'm like, but I'm still not there just yet. I mean, I can tell someone and saying, hey, like, love your body and everything doing. And then I'm in the back though, looking at the mirror and saying, I can't do the same. I can't tell myself that. And so I feel like a flaw. So I truly am grateful to be in the US. I am a US citizen, a naturalized US citizen. And I honestly, my kids have been my rock. My husband has been very helpful. And I don't know, I think that's what I got.
I want to speak to the fact that, as you're sharing your story, Rachel and myself are white, thin, privileged, blonde, blue-eyed humans. And so while I can never speak to the volume of what you're experiencing, I think, and I heard this from Linda Bacon, who they had shared that in Health at Every Size, we're not supposed to know everything or pretend that we can understand and relate to absolutely everything, and that there is privilege involved with certain people. But if we can acknowledge the privilege and we can try to understand what it's like on the other side, or try to get more education around what it's like to come from a different country into a place that is promoting thin privilege and we all should look the same, and if you don't look like a Victoria's Secret model, you're not great. Like, that's all bullshit, but I can't pretend that it doesn't exist. And so I am just speaking to that to point out the fact that, like, I appreciate your vulnerability and, my my job in this is to really continue to educate myself and provide more opportunities to those that maybe wouldn't have had it, or see how I could assist those that have not had the same privilege as myself. So just, I appreciate what you shared. So kind of wrapping it up, what messages would you want to share to moms listening that are navigating this journey, maybe who are struggling with an eating disorder, or who are navigating their own body image journey? What advice would you give them, or what would you share with them?
That you're not alone, that even the lady down the street is, you know, criticizing a part of their body just as much as we both are. But there's help out there. There is supports out there. There is psychiatrists. There is psychologists. There are, that specialize in eating disorders. There are, dietitians. My dietitian is not necessarily like an eating disorder like specializes, but she understands because she's the one that everybody that has an eating disorder goes to her. And really the first thing is admitting that you have a problem and that it's become unmanageable, and then it's time to act on it. And if you're having a hard time finding oh where or when, I mean, the NIDA website is amazing. They will direct you to a lot of things. Go around or ask around your town, the hospital or anything like that, that will tell you, this is what we offer. And if there's nothing, I encourage you to start it, because you never know who would be struggling. When I started our support group, I did not know the Imagine or the people that are in it. I'd never thought that they would be in it, because everything was fine. And then some come in and they're like, oh my gosh, like I actually belong here. So my encouragement to you is that, even though you're in this hole, or you feel like you are without anybody, or you feel like you're alone and you feel down on yourself and you're downing on yourself, make sure to look up, because there is 3, 4, 5 different hands trying to pull you out of that. Even if you are a single mom, even if you are, a mom that's about to lose it, look up. And if you feel like you're in this dark hole with nowhere else, feeling like I am not worthy, look up, and there's 4 or 5 different hands that are wanting to pull you up. For me, I believe in God, so for me, God was the one that I have to focus on every day and say, okay, today I'm going to let Ed go to you. That, I mean, it's not perfect, of course, but so that would be my encouragement, to always look up and and say, okay, so if today didn't work out, then I can plan for tomorrow. And if you can plan for tomorrow, and if you can't do one day at a time, do 1 hour at a time. If 1 hour at a time is not doing it, then do like 30 minutes. If 30 minutes is not doing it, then cut it down all the way down to 1 minute or one feeling. It's like take small steps, so then, because it will eventually become bigger, and you're going to see how far you'll come.
That's awesome.
In your life.
Awesome. Do you want to plug yourself and promote anything you got going on?
Yeah. So I live in Indiana, Richmond, Indiana. So if anybody is listening in Indiana, and if not, you can find me on Instagram. It's Mama Tells It Like It Is. Underneath too, that thing is going to change because I'm refiguring it out. So you gotta be patient with me.
Okay. We'll tag you anyways, though, so people will find you on Instagram.
And then Facebook, of course. I mean, I'm on there, and And then my email would be carolina.healton91@gmail.com. I mean, I'm always there and I'm willing to help.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think so many mamas are going to be touched by this because it's so vulnerable and authentic to hear someone else share their story and say that, like, it's not perfect and it's always a struggle and kids are stressful and body image is stressful in this culture. And so I'm just so grateful that you are showing up as you are and where you're at, because I think that's going to be very refreshing for a lot of people to hear.
Thank you, mamas, for speaking to us here at Mom Jeans. We are so honored that you allowed us to share your stories. Don't forget to check out our social media pages so you can be connected to these amazing mamas and follow their stories. And if you ever want to share your story, please reach out to us at momjeansthepodcast@gmail.com. That's Mom Jeans with a G.
So our takeaway question for you is, what steps do you need to take to get one step closer to healing and recovery? Because mama, you are worth it. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.
This episode of Mom Jeans was produced and edited by Rachel Coleman and Tina LeBoy.
Just a reminder, this episode is not a substitute for therapeutic counsel or nutrition advice.
Thank you to Jerry DePizzo for the music production.
You can find episode information and show notes at www.momjeansthepodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at momjeansthepodcast and join the Mom Jeans the Podcast Facebook group to find a community of mamas learning to love their bodies and discussing the episodes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mom Jeans. See you next time.